exciting first heat of action. We have 20 sleds again for this men's skeleton heat. 10 different nations, and we had quite the tight grouping between our top 5.
In the first heat.
Yeah, it absolutely was a really tight battle for the top there. We've got the top 5 sleds separated by only 0.08 of a second, and then you've got Marcus Wyatt sitting in 6th place, 0.36 back, and he'll be looking to climb a few spots. But very exciting first heat. We saw some thrills and spills, a few loose runs, mostly the usual customers that you'd expect at the top, but a few surprises as well. We had Chen Wenhao in 4th position, and Austin Florian actually producing the fastest run of the first heat with a 491. So it's going to be super exciting to see what this second heat produces.
Yeah, the American with the top start. Great start. Still only, I think, about 500ths off of our start record, which was set by Alexander Trechikov.
Yeah, it was a great performance. And then we've got the Korean Sung-gi Young in 2nd position in amongst the Germans, which you wouldn't necessarily expect to see on such a techno track where home advantage is so important, but there he is, applying pressure to the hometown boys. And Christopher Grote here, as I said, in the first heat, putting on a bit of a masterclass, showing us how it's done and producing great speed, the highest speed of the first heat as well, 118.3 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, so lots of pressure for these sliders. Again, that top 5 separated only by 0.08 of a second. And Grote only 200ths ahead of the Korean slider, Singui. So is he going to be able to keep it together for that second run and further extend that lead to get that gold medal for the day here?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all shakes out. And I think, a loose run could knock you down quite a few spots. And in the same way, if someone can produce an outstanding run, there's a potential there to really go on a run of climbing a lot of spots. And we saw that a lot in the women's race earlier. I think also with it now getting dark and the air temperature coming down a little bit, it's going to be interesting to see how the track holds up. I'm expecting the track to stay in quite decent condition this evening as we move into darkness.
Yeah, some cooler temperatures, hopefully some faster times down the track. Like Laura D's here, the 2018 bronze medalist in the sport of women's skeleton. She raced this morning, so she knows the track conditions better than anybody and how they're ever changing as we move into the second heat here today.
So I think over the years you become a bit of an amateur meteorologist as an ice sport athlete, because you're constantly looking at the humidity, the temperature, and you're trying to figure out if the settings that you've set your sled at, that you've picked for the race day, are the ones that are going to be fastest. And there's no real way of knowing until you take that first run and you see what happens and feel what's going on underneath you.
Absolutely. That is probably one of the best ways to say it. We're amateur meteorologists, but at least now we know for a fact there's some colder temperatures in the air in Altenburg as we have our first slider, Evan Neufeld, off the top of the track here. Again, the Canadian slider with a big start, looking to move up some spots in this second heat. 5:19 start for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes when you're at the bottom end of the order for Heat 2, it can be quite good in a way because you've got nothing to lose apart from go out there and try and climb as many spots as possible. And I'm sure that's what Evan will be looking to do here. And of course, going first, he'll get the best of the ice this time, which he may not have had on Heat 1. So let's see what he can come up with here.
Yeah, this will be exciting to see if he can't improve upon his first heat time. This will, again, even though he's in the 20th position at the moment, he's essentially the rabbit again for this second heat here. So hopefully he can set a good pace and show these other sliders what's to come.
That's it, and he looks pretty relaxed on the sled. He's not overworking it and doing too much, and there's a really nice sheen to the ice now, which tells me that there's plenty of speed in there.
Yeah, this almost looks like a much faster run, 57.72, so it's definitely a much, almost I think a half second compared to his first run down time. So the track has life in it again, and I think we're going to see some pretty quick times as we continue to progress through the orders. So nice looking run there by Evan, and hopefully enough to move him up in position.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, he was gone significantly quicker on his first run there. The first heat, he managed a 58.38, so that shows you how much of an improvement this second heat was. And as he came off the wall there, he did a really good job of, even though he took the impact, his runners were still moving forward, and that meant he wasn't decelerating the sled any more than absolutely necessary.
And you know, Laura, the run looked cleaner overall. Is there something to be said about speed in a track and almost making things easier?
Absolutely. I think tracks are designed to work at certain speeds, and sometimes you just hit that sweet spot where the pressure matches the exits of the corners and it just seems to work better. And every track's different, and yeah, some tracks are actually a little bit easier when you're moving quicker, believe it or not.
All right, well, we'll see how that pans out here for the second Canadian slider, Evan's teammate Mark Lynch. Again, this is his first World Cup of the season. He has himself sitting in the 19th position, and he's in the green still. Not a bad transition there in that uphill section, 4 to 5, but he's only holding on to a 200ths lead.
Yeah, he's having a really nice run so far and letting the sled wave, not overworking it, and he looks really relaxed coming into Kreisel. Oh, took that rub on the wall and possibly overreacted slightly on the front of Kreisel there because it was very flat, and he pushed a little bit of pressure to the end of Kreisel there, which is why you see that slight instability in the sled, and you can see that's reflected in the speed now as he's falling back behind his teammate Evan.
Yeah, that double hit in that uphill section before 15 is not going to be in favor for him, especially coming across the finish line here. 2,500ths behind his teammate. Still, a nice-looking slide for the Canadian slider, Mark Lynch there. And again, he came across in 58.22. So the track is still quick. We can't take anything away from what this track is capable of producing in the second run.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, with the temperatures falling, we're probably going to see the speeds in this heat get quicker and quicker rather than the other way around like we saw in heat 1. This is the exit of Kreisel here, and you see the sleds just travelling up as the corner's coming down, and that's not what you want. You want your sled to be matching the profile of the corner, and that's why he had that end pressure to deal with, and then he had to deal with these hits on the wall as well. And that's a really tricky section of the track there because you're going over a negative G section, so you've got almost no control on the runners. So any movement you make there, and you will be moving the sled from side to side.
And on top of that, it's almost like this difficult situation where you need to steer with your toes to get yourself back online, but you're scrubbing speed by doing so. So that's a tough spot to be in for the Canadian slider, but he handled it really well. So now we're on to our next slider here, the Italian Manuel Schweizer. Again, he is looking for that 17th place finish to be able to at least equal his best finish on this Altenburg track in a World Cup race.
That's it. His first heat down time was a 58.02, so I reckon if he can get in the 57s, that's going to represent a decent improvement for him.
Nice corner 2 there. He's using a little bit of toe there in corner 3 to give him some direction. And a nice toe steer in 4. Hopefully that doesn't scrub too much speed for him. He's actually gaining more and more time as he continues down the track. He's up to 3/10.
Yeah, this is looking like a nice run, and he was definitely making sure that sled was not going to rise too much on the exit of 4. It looks like he took a difficult tap on the entrance of Kreisel there.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's such a shame. He had a great run going on there when that happened, and that was just that extra bit of pressure on the end of Kreisel. The sled was going up as the corner was coming down, and that was the result, and that's such a shame for Manuel.
Oh, and it's one of the worst feelings in the world. You know you're having a great run, and unfortunately with these sliding sports, things happen so fast. We're talking hundreds, thousands of a second to make these split-second decisions. So for him to try and control those 3 waves in Kreisel and make that split-second decision, how he's going to be able to manage it, I can only imagine how difficult that was for him.
Of course, and you may well get presented with something different on race day than you've ever experienced in training. You know, if the track's a different speed, if you've pushed harder off the top, you're going to be carrying a different velocity into the corner. And so it might just be that the steers are all working well for him in training, just didn't work for him in that situation there. And then you see it's so difficult once you get out of control to try and wrestle yourself back on the sled. The most important thing is to try and keep hold of that sled at all costs.
Right, because if those that are watching don't know, if you do not stay in contact with your sled and cross the finish line, it doesn't count. So good on him for keeping with the sled, getting across the finish line, and finishing the run and earning those valuable points towards his World Cup quotas.
Absolutely.
Now we're on to France's. We have Lucas de Fayette, and again, one of the young sliders in the field here. Not the strongest starter off the top of the hill, but he's putting together a nice run. He's in the green. I think he had a pretty significant lead after that first run. So let's see if he can hold off the Canadian slider, Evan Neufeld.
Yeah, he's got quite a comfortable margin here, so as long as he can get to the end of this run without anything particularly dramatic happening, then he should be able to maintain his lead. And as I said, in Heat 1, he is from the La Plan track, which is a notoriously high-pressure, difficult track. So if that's his home ice, then hopefully for him that this track isn't too daunting and he can take it in his stride, which is what he seems to be doing here, putting together a lovely run.
Yeah, this is honestly a super clean run other than that little skid there before corner 15. I'm pretty impressed with how this slider is coming across the finish line here. 5,500's up. He had a 58.08, not the fastest run of the second heat, but again, a solid run for the French slider to hold on to his position and potentially gain some more spots.
Absolutely, it's going to be interesting to see if that actually moves him up the order on top of just maintaining his position from the first heat. And he looks pretty happy with that, and so he should be. That was good.
Always happy to see a big smile after you come across the finish line. Again, it's not always about winning. Sometimes here it's about personal gain and putting together those runs that just give you confidence moving forward. A lot of these athletes are getting ready for the World Championships in St. Moritz. These are just valuable points and valuable experiences so that they can hopefully be able to contend for the World Championship medals.
Absolutely, and we have another week of racing here after this one, so any experience gained, even on these race runs as well as training, we will take into next week.
That's a great point as well, Laura. This is almost like the precursor for maybe next week for some of these athletes to really be able to come out and hit it hard. And that might be the same here for Craig Thompson. Coming off of injury, he had a great first run, a very nice looking slide for him. A 5:04 start is also an excellent start. So let's see how the Great Britain slider takes this run all the way to the bottom of the track.
Yeah, he's gone significantly quicker on that push than he did on Heat 1, almost a tenth quicker. And a little bit of a bump there going uphill, but it's going to be interesting with the great start velocity that he had on board up to that point, whether that cost him too much or not remains to be seen. Lovely controlled exit of corner 9 there.
Well, like you said, he had great start velocity, and I think that's paying off because he did not lose any time, even with taking that hit. We saw Andrew Blaser that first heat, took a very similar hit, a little bit harder coming out of that 4-5 transition, but he almost lost a second. So Craig Thompson's having a great run. Yeah,
it looks like Craig's kept the speed on board, and he also had a great exit of 14, one of the best I've seen all day, kept those runners dead straight going over that brow of the hill, and that's reflected in the downtime there.
So great job by Craig Thompson. He holds on to his current position, and again, that might be one of those runs that's good enough to move him up a couple of spots here come the second heat. He should be really happy with that. And like you said too, he dropped significantly at the start, which I think is what paid dividends for this pretty big mistake there going into corner 5.
Yeah, and those hits out of corner 4 can look really dramatic, but a lot actually depends on what the sled's doing more than what the athlete's body is doing. If the sled's staying in contact with the ice and going forward, then sometimes it actually doesn't scrub off as much speed as you might think.
All right, so our first 5 sleds are down, and we have Craig Thompson currently sitting in the lead, hopefully looking to move up and take over the spot that Mattia Gaspari is currently holding by 0.07 of a second. Mattia's going to need a big start coming off the top of the Altenburg track here. But like we had mentioned in that first heat, he is an excellent driver. So whatever he's able to get out of this start, we know he's going to make up for going down towards the bottom of the track. 5:24, fourth best start.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to the start he produced on Heat 1. And like you said, he's an excellent glider, so he may not put that speed into the sled at the top, but he certainly knows how to find it on the way down.
You know what I liked there, Laura? His exit of 4, I couldn't hear anything. So he was barely using his toes, I'm assuming, to navigate himself through there. He's clean. He's gaining time. He's up to 700s going into Kreisel.
Yeah, and that's a great point you made there about the sound. Sometimes when you stand trackside, the best indication of how a run is going is how it sounds. And generally speaking, the less you can hear, the faster the sled is moving.
And he's up to 2100ths as he goes into corner 15. So Matty is putting together an excellent run. He should be really satisfied with this. 3200ths up to the Great Britain slider. Both of them put together beautiful trips, but Matty showed what he was capable of in the bottom portion of the track.
Yeah, that was a really lovely run, and he went a tenth quicker than on heat 1, which was also a decent run. So that shows the high quality of that slide just then. And like we said, he really knows how to produce speed down the track, and he looks pretty happy with that.
I'll tell you what, too. There is something about an Altenburg crowd, and it looks like the crowd has come out here for the second heat. I know that's got to be pretty awesome for these athletes crossing the finish line. Nobody loves bobsled more than the town folk of Altenburg, and that's why they're some of my favorite fans in the world.
Yeah, they sure are. They're very enthusiastic. They're an appreciative crowd, and it's just so nice to have spectators back again after the last couple of years we've had, and it really makes a difference to the whole experience.
I absolutely agree. It's so weird now, even seeing all these athletes without masks. I barely recognize them because that's been just such a staple for us for the last 2 years. And now we have our Austrian slider kicking off to the top of the track here. And this is Florian Hour. He has a 5:28 start, so not necessarily the start that he's looking for, but Florian had a really good drive that first run. Interesting line there in corner 2. He kind of skirted his way through the belly. We'll see how that pans out as he enters into this next speed trap.
His corner 4, that was so impressive. The sled pretty much stayed flat all the way around the corner. He didn't do anything more or less than exactly what he needed to do. And he's putting together a great looking run here. He actually produced very good speed on his first run. He had one of the highest speeds at the bottom of the track. So let's see if he can match or even improve that on this run. It looks like he's going to.
Yes, he's having an excellent run. Again, taking off, coming out of the Kreisel corner as he enters into 13-14 here. Going uphill, he's up 1300ths. A small brush, but I don't think that's going to affect him. I think we're going to see him maintain his spot for the second heat.
Yeah, that was a lovely run overall. It was calm, controlled, not a lot wrong with it. I hope he's pretty happy with that. That looked good.
I would have to assume he has to be satisfied with that for sure. Anytime you're able to maintain your position in a race, that's just a good feeling. Of course, when you come across the finish line, you see the number 1, you know that you did your job of at least keeping where your current position was. There's no better feeling. And then, of course, when you don't, that's kind of a disappointment. So
Absolutely.
Good for him for doing that. Yeah.
And he actually did a really good job here. He didn't get the line he wanted going into corner 2, but he didn't overreact, he didn't panic. He let the sled run and keep accelerating down into corner 3, which is really important for speed here on this track.
Oof. Now, Laura, how is that hit coming out of 17 for a skeleton fighter? Is that as bad as it looks to the viewers at home?
Yes. Yeah, it never gets any easier. I've got some bruises to show for it this week for sure.
All right, so now we are back to the People's Republic of China. Our slider kicking off the top of the hill here. Of course, we have our slider Yin. He had a great first run, a great starter as well with a 494 again. 300s off of that top start time that Austin Florian put up the first heat. And he had a halfway decent run. I think we're going to see him move up a couple spots. He might have been a product of the circumstance with the frost.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a big improvement here because he was quite late on in the order in the first heat. And as you said, I think there might have been a bit of frost building up at that point. Just a little bit unstable going into Kreisel, which is never what you want as an athlete. And you're trying to focus on this huge corner coming up. You don't want to be moving sideways. But he managed it pretty well. He's still got plenty of speed on board here.
Yeah, a huge lead. He'd have to make a pretty significant mistake here in order to throw that away. But unfortunately, he still is bleeding away time. I would expect him to be down to almost 3,500s once he crosses the finish line. Wow, he picked up almost a tenth there. I thought he was going to continue to fall back. 5,200ths ahead as he crosses the finish line. A great slide for Yin Cheng.
Yeah, that was impressive, and I think he was possibly falling back a little bit up until Kreisel, and then just produced an excellent Kreisel exit, and I think that's probably why you saw his speed go back the other way and re-accelerate again after Kreisel.
Like you had said, a little late flop there coming out of the shoot-eye corner. That might have helped produce some of that instability as he's coming down that straightaway into Kreisel.
I love how he just made the slightest correction there, didn't panic, and then was still able to focus on Kreisel that was right in front of him at that point.
For his first World Cup in Altenburg, pretty impressive. All right, and now we have our Ukrainian slider, Vladislav Herskevich, and he, again, is an excellent driver. There's his father, who is his head coach. What a unique experience for him to have his dad travel the world with him and give him all of his veteran experience as well. Vlad is, again, like I said, an excellent starter. He may not get the starts that he always wants, but a big, powerful athlete. And let's see what he does coming into this first timing eye, a 5:24, so fifth best start. Let's see how he holds together going down the course.
Yeah, he certainly knows how to build velocity down the track, and you can see that from his first heat. He produced one of the highest speeds of the first heat. So what he lacks potentially at the start, he always looks to make up for down the track by being a good gliding athlete.
And absolutely, again, this is a driver's track. So for Vlad, the start isn't necessarily the whole thing. So whatever he's capable of doing coming out of Kreisel here, if he can really take advantage of that velocity like you had said, I think we're going to see him to continue to climb up. Ooh, a little hairy coming out of corner 12 as he's entering that 13-14 combination. But that might have cost him that little bit of time that he needed to climb back from that 3/10 deficit.
Yeah, it looks like he knew he had a good exit of Kreisel, and he was really trying to let the sled run through that lower section of the track and maybe just undercooked his steer slightly and let it fly too much, and that ended up costing him some time, unfortunately.
But that's part of racing, right? It's all about finding that balance of controlled chaos, as some people like to call it. You're either just letting the sled run and hoping that you put yourself in the right position to gain time, or you're a little bit too free and you make just the wrong mistake that will end up costing you.
Exactly. Controlled chaos is a very good way of putting it. And it's different for everybody. Some athletes really enjoy having lots of control in their sled and so being less likely to skid. Other athletes prefer feeling like they're on the edge of control, doing less and letting it fly more. And a lot of the time it's a personal choice, and both can be fast. There isn't one right way to do it.
That's such a unique thing to point out, too. There are different styles of how these individuals are getting down to the bottom of the track. It's not cookie cutter. Not everyone's driving the same or doing the same pressure point steers. Everyone is slightly different.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a lot of variation.
Now we have Yen Wengang, our Olympic bronze medalist, and I was expecting him to be a little bit further up in the ranks here, but again, a strong slider, great driver. He's in the red to his teammate now, but I'll be curious to see how that continues as he's putting together a pretty smooth run so far.
Yeah, it's very tight here, only 200s, and now he's in the green, and it's a race within a race between these two Chinese athletes. He produced great speed on Heat 1, so I'm willing to bet if he can keep the shiny bits down, as Martin Haven would say, then he's going to be in front at the bottom.
So there was another example of letting things kind of go and to the outcome of that controlled chaos. He had some big waves in Kreisel, but it spit him out at the exit and gave him almost a tenth of time. But he lost that back in the bottom portion of the track to his teammate, still in the green, 500ths ahead.
Yeah, I think he was lucky that the finish line wasn't another 10 or 15 meters in front of him. Otherwise, it might have gone back the other way, because I think he was losing time there at the bottom. But decent run he's put together there.
And I think their head coach needs to be happy. The Chinese sliders are excellent. Their program has come together so well, even on the bobsled side of things. And it's amazing to watch how quickly they've progressed over these last few years, going into the Beijing Olympics, and now watching them progress going into the 2026 Olympics.
Absolutely. The pressure on them going into a home games must have been immense, especially, under the circumstances of COVID as well. And I think for the amount of experience they have on this track, they have put in an excellent performance today, all in all.
He's happy with his run there. And we're now through our first 10 sliders of the second heat of this competition. Now entering top 10, a tight grouping to come to see who will come away today with the medals.
You can really hear the spectators in good voice, getting hyped up for the German athletes coming down. There's Axel's army.
Yes. And again, the people of Altenburg are amazing. My first time going to Altenburg, I was a little bit intimidated, if I won't kid you. It's a pretty small town. It's usually kind of dreary there. The sun occasionally comes out, but I'll tell you what, some of the people that I have met in my time in Altenburg, some of the nicest individuals that are on the entire sliding circuit.
Absolutely, and they know their ice sports. They're a very knowledgeable crowd as well. They appreciate good skill on the sled and good sliding. And they always make a lot of noise, which is lovely. When you come up the outrun and you can just hear this wall of sound, it's really nice as an athlete, especially when you've done a good run and you can kind of celebrate with the crowd. That's always good.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you there. We stay at a nice hotel called the Aschengraben, which is just outside of Altenburg there. And again, you walk into the hotel main lobby, all it is bobsled memorabilia, signed jerseys, bibs from skeleton races. It just shows that what sliding sports means to this small town and this small region of Germany.
Absolutely, this track is part of the DNA of this town. And I think that's reflected in the quality of the ice work that goes on here as well. The track workers are renowned as some of the best in the world, and you always know that coming to Altenburg, regardless of the weather, the track is going to be smooth and as fast as it possibly can be.
And like you said, I think so far, because of the work of Ralph and his crew here on the Altenburg Ice Channel, the track is held up pretty well for this second heat. And that's going to bode well for these top 10 sliders who are coming up. And again, I'm excited. I would like to see some sleds hopefully get down into the 55-second range, maybe starting to push that 120 kilometer per hour marker. So let's see if our first of the top 10, the German slider, is capable of maybe cracking some top speeds here. Again, we have Felix Heisinger with a 498 start, so a great start, good velocity as he enters into corner 2. I know he wasn't happy with that first run.
Yeah, that was a beautiful exit of corner 2, and on heat 1 he actually slipped in the start and definitely lost out on some velocity there, so I am expecting him to show us what he's really made of in this run and give everybody else still left to go something to chase.
And that home track advantage is huge to begin with, but I will tell you what, the Germans know how to find speed in their second heat. So Felix is having a good run. He's lost a little bit of time back. I'll be curious to see how that continues. 700s now. Clean trip, but he's just continuing to bleed some time.
Yeah, it looks like he's hopefully going to hold on here, but he hasn't gapped the previous athlete in the way that I was expecting him to, given the quality of that run, because that was beautiful.
Yes, that was a beautiful run. He comes across second fastest time, but he holds on to his 10th place position. So no worse than 10th place for the young German slider today. But like you said, that was pretty curious. He had a beautiful looking trip. I wonder if we jinxed ourselves, that commentator jinx. Maybe the track may start to give way.
Yeah, it's possible that we might be seeing some of that because, yeah, really there wasn't a lot to criticise on that run at all. That was pretty textbook. So possibly some head scratching for Felix there. Maybe he could feel something that we can't see on screen, that he'll know why he wasn't quicker today. But look at that control in Kreisel. That was absolutely beautiful. Lovely straight exit.
Yeah, that was really a nice exit and great control of the waves, like you had said, taking advantage of them. And I think that's what was able to get him back those the last few hundredths of the second coming into the bottom portion of the track. Now we have the Austrian slider back up, Alexander Schlittner. Again, it's his first World Cup here in Altenburg, and he's in the top 10. So really showing what he's capable of. as a slider coming down this track. 5:17 start, not a great start, but again, an excellent driver.
Yeah, he showed us what he's capable of on Heat 1, and that was the same push time as he produced on Heat 1, so let's see what he can do here. Lovely gliding style that he has, and just letting the sled run as much as possible through these top few corners, which don't look like much, but they're actually still quite technical, and there's definitely a certain track through there for building speed that you can sometimes find.
Wow, and like you said, beautifully executed at the top of the track. That's gained him back a tenth of time as he's exiting Kreisel there. But that brush on the slider's right, and potentially how he used his waves, he's lost a little bit of time back.
Yeah, that was one of those Kreisels which looked like maybe it was too good, and he pushed the waves a little bit too far around the corner with how he controlled it, and paid for it on the exit there.
Oh, and a disappointing finish there, 57.31, but you know what? His first time doing the World Cup here in Altenburg, he needs to be happy. I think he's walking away with a top 13 finish, so no worse than 13th place. And again, that's significant points for him, not only going into World Championships, but something to build off of as he enters into training next week here again in Altenburg.
Absolutely, and I want to stress how difficult it is to be consistent on this track. It is so hard to put down two great runs, and obviously as an athlete it's a nicer feeling to finish on the better run, because then you leave the track thinking, on a positive note. But his first run was really excellent, something to be proud of, and lots to take away from this for him, I expect.
Yeah, again, a great run by the Austrian there, and walking away with a smile on his face. So that's a good sign. You know that he's ready to come back. He's hungry for more going into next week. And the German slider, again, Felix, he manages to pick up a spot there. So that's a big finish for him, 9th place. Now we have the American Austin Florian, who had a 491 start in that first heat. An excellent start. Does he get into the 80s? Ooh, a little skid out of the grooves there. 492. Let's see how that's going to affect him going into this next speed trap.
Yeah, another excellent start for Austin, and he produced a lovely run in Heat 1 and controls corner 4 beautifully. And let's see if he can keep all this speed on board through this little labyrinth section down into 9 and the Kreisel section.
Again, he is maintaining that speed. I think he went a little later into the order last time, so be curious to see how things go for him as he exits Kreisel. Again, using that knee steer that we had mentioned in the first heat to kind of control that third wave. He's losing time slowly back to this young German slider. He's now in the red, entering into corner 15.
Yeah, I think a little mistake there out of Kreisel hitting the wall, and that will have scrubbed off just too much speed for him to be able to maintain that lead to the finish line. Another spot there for Felix Kaiser again. He is making the most of this crowd.
So Kaisinger moves up again. Yes, the crowd is loving it. And of course, the American's going to be disappointed, but again, like you had said, initially, it's difficult to be consistent here. And it's tough sometimes to take over a German on their own home track. But for Austin, I think after he gets home, he has some time to digest this through the weekend. He's going to be really proud of his efforts and how he was able to come back here and have 2 successful runs and build off of that going into next week.
Absolutely. I wonder if he just over-controlled the front of Kreisel there. He was extremely low through the front, and it's so difficult to gauge as an athlete. You want to make sure you don't let it go too much, but it looks like he was possibly maybe a little bit too flat through the front of Kreisel, which again may have pushed those waves too far around.
Yeah, and like you said too, that's an interesting point where sometimes controlling things and making something look really good isn't necessarily the fastest line. So we'll see now how the Korean slider, Kim Ji-soo, is able to handle things, and if he's able to hold off our German competitor as he's coming down the track. Coming off the top, he's a great starter. He's had a good season so far, 2 5th-place finishes, and let's see, again, an excellent start that first heat, 493. So he's got some great velocity going into these first few corners.
Yeah, that was a great start. He went quicker than Heat 1. Slight mistake off 2 there, but it may not have cost him too much. Let's see what he can do in corner 4. Not a bad exit there.
Yeah, smooth run so far. He's got a pretty big advantage, 3/10 as he's entering into the Shudai corner. This long straightaway going into the Kreisel takes 2 taps, that might affect him. We'll see how he handles these next few corners. Let's see, 1900. So this is going to come down to the 100th of a second. He's got to be perfect.
Yeah, I think so. He took an unfortunate tap on the wall there just before Kreisel, and I think that's definitely taken some time away from him here.
1100s. So nice job by the Korean slider Kim there as he overtakes the German Felix. I know he's going to be happy with that. Great result for him on this track.
Yeah, that was a great run all in all. Not perfect, but you don't always have to be perfect to go fast. That's the other thing about this sport is sometimes loose is fast, sometimes not doing too much is faster than over-controlling it, like you said, and possibly that's where Austin fell down a little bit, was he maybe over-controlled Kreisel rather than undercooking it slightly.
Well, I like how you said that too. Loose is fast. That's one of the most notorious terms that I've heard while my time in the sport here. So yeah, and also on any given day, you just need to be better than everybody else. So you don't have to necessarily be perfect. It doesn't have to be a track record or a start record. You just have to be better than the individuals that are in front of you or right behind you. And he was able to do that to maintain that 7th position. Now we're into the top 6 sliders, which is going to be very exciting for Marcus Wyatt to hold off the Korean slider and maintain a top 6, a 494 start. Again, Marcus was a gold medalist this season in Whistler, so he wants to find his way into the medals. Does he have what it takes today?
Yeah, Marcus made a few small errors on Heat 1, which I know he'll be wanting to fix, and this already looks like a cleaner run than Heat 1, and what Marcus is great at doing is not overworking things and letting the sled accelerate, and that is a lovely run down into Kreisel there, and you can see that reflected in the great speed.
Unbelievable Kreisel. Oh, so I mean, he is taking advantage of every inch of this track and getting as much speed out of it as possible as he enters into 14 here.
Yeah, and again, not perfect, but he's just built some really good momentum down the track, and he's not doing too much to scrub that off.
Nice, but he does maintain his lead. He will hold on to the 6th position, so no worse than a top 6 finish for the GB slider.
And this is where we get into a really tight bunch now. The battle from 5th to 1st is really close, so this is going to be exciting to see whether Marcus can get in amongst that battle or not.
And I think this will be a true testament as well of how this track is holding up. And again, how these other sliders will be able to handle if the track is starting to fall away. And what their equipment setups look like. And again, how loose they may be. Look at that toe drag and that first pressure there and just the snow flying off of the ice. That's quite impressive.
Yeah,
quite the impressive pictures.
I love that slow-mo of the front of Kreisel where you can see the effect that the toe steer is having in the ice, and Marcus is doing a really good job here of just absorbing the slight error. You can feel his sled slightly unstable underneath him, but he doesn't overreact, he lets it run, and he's held his spot.
Well, I know in bobsled, that first pressure going into Kreisel, it's almost like hitting a wall sometimes. Oh, and right off we are going. We have Matt Weston contending for medals here. He's 2800s up on his teammate. A little skid coming out of the grooves. He's trying to recorrect himself going into corner 1, but a great start.
Yeah, a little bit quicker, I think, than his first heat. And let's hope he can carry that momentum through this notoriously difficult Amiga curve corner 4. That was a beautiful exit.
Yeah, excellent exit there. He's continuing to gain time. He's up to 0.3 of a second. And, you know, nothing is guaranteed in the sliding sports, but a 0.3 lead and a growing 0.3 lead is pretty significant. I know he had a good gap between himself and Marcus. Matt's not necessarily worried about who's behind him. He's worried about chasing those 100ths of a second between him and a medal at this moment. 0.7, what a beautiful run.
Yeah, and he has built some great speed on this track. Again, not necessarily a perfect run, but it doesn't always have to be if you've got your setup right and you know what you're about. And as you say, he is looking in front of him at this tight bunch of athletes now. We've got the Chinese athlete, 2 Germans and a Korean, all only a few hundreds in front of him after Heat 1. So that's a definite challenge for a medal there. Let's see if he can get himself in amongst it.
Yeah, if there was a run for Matt Weston to put down to gap himself and position himself for a medal, that might have been it right there. That was almost as good as it gets in regards to gaining time and speed going down the track, which is not something we've seen too much in this second heat. So good on him for doing that.
Yeah, that was a big second run from Matt, and it looks like the spur has been kicking left for quite a lot of the athletes, but he handled it well there to keep it running straight into corner one. I think he's happy.
Yeah, Matt Weston, I'm told that he has a rivalry with Andrew Blauser. That's Andrew Blauser's arch nemesis. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know the beef that's going on, but I hope they can figure it out going into these next few World Cups. So now we're in our top four. Can Matt Weston move up and take over Chen Wenhao? Again, this is a surprise for this first heat. Chen is just on the cusp of a medal. Had a great first run, 499 start here. Let's see how he does. He handled corner two very well, nice and straight, entering corner three.
Yeah, like a lot of athletes, he had to work quite hard on the exit of the spur to keep the sled running forward, and definitely made sure the sled wasn't going to rise too much out of corner four there. Maybe it was verging on too much work, and sometimes it's difficult as the frost builds up through the heat to know exactly how strong to make some of these steers.
Oh, and that late entrance into Kreisel is only going to affect his time more. He's 3/10 down already. Now he's looking at almost 5/10. So a tough break for the Chinese slider at the moment. But it looks like Matt Weston and Marcus Wyatt are both going to be able to make the jump to that 4 and 5 position.
Yeah, shame here for Wenhao. Just probably a run to forget for him. Nothing massively wrong with it, but just didn't seem to click. And that shows you just how good Matt's run actually was.
Yeah, actually, no, that was, I almost for a second forgot how excellent Matt's run was, because Wenhao is still in second place currently, which is pretty incredible. But good for him. He'll get a top 6 finish or a top 5 finish there. He's going to be happy with that. And now Matt Weston is on verge of potentially entering into the medal conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a stunning run from Matt. And as I said, nothing wrong with Wenhao's run here. It was decent, but just didn't quite have the speed that Matt did. But still in second position, as you say, that's a great result.
Yeah, I think the Chinese, they will be happy with leaving with these results here for this week and building momentum going into next week. So now we're down to the top 3 sliders, and we have Axel Junk, the hometown boy of Altenburg. He is looking to not only fend off Matt Weston's great run, but potentially move up a couple more spots as well and make it a German 1-2.
Yeah, this is Axel's home track, so a lot of noise for him on the start, as you'd expect, and like the other athletes, having to drop a toe out of the spur to keep the sled moving forward. But does a great job of corner 2 and building some really good momentum down into this big Amiga curve corner 4.
And again, you can really see that frost starting to build up. Again, Axel is a highly experienced slider here on the Altenburg track. He stopped the bleeding so far, so he's at 1700ths of a second. Entering into the shoot-eye corner here, I would expect to either see that go, there he is, he's maintaining, so he's showing why in that first heat he's in the medal contention, because his bottom half of the track was one of the best. But he's lost time.
Yeah, I mean, for Axel, this isn't a perfect run. It's still great, but there was a couple of little errors where he was slightly out of rhythm with the track, and I think he's going to want to do this run all over again.
Wow, unreal. So Matt Weston claims no worse than a bronze medal. Axel Junk is currently in 4th, so no worse than 4th place. But again, like we had said, Matt Weston laid down an excellent run. So he might have made a statement run here to contend with Christopher Grothair for that gold medal.
Absolutely, and only 2 sliders left to go to decide the medals. And yeah, Axel's not 100% happy with that, and I can see why. He took a brush here, took a risk going into corner 4, letting the sled wave in 3, and he just hit on the entrance of 4, and that probably did scrub off some velocity.
Yeah, overall though, not a bad run. There he is. Nice toe drag going into corner 9. Again, like you said, those pictures are incredible. That slow-mo shot they're able to get. If he could do it all over again, he would, but he'll get that chance going into next week.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about staying at this track, is you get a chance to fix any mistakes you made in this race.
All right, so we're down to our final 2 sliders. This is exciting here, separated by 200ths for the gold medal position, and a 498 for our Korean slider, Young here. Let's see if he's able to hold off Matt Weston's excellent run and the speed that he had in the bottom portion of the track.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see if Korea can spoil the German party here in a bid for the gold medal, but he's fallen back a little bit already, and again that just shows you what a great run Matt had.
Nice exit. It looks like a relatively clean run, but just really not the speed there. Like we said, maybe he's doing a little bit too much control with the amount of frost that's starting to build up on the track, because he's now 5/10 back. That currently sees Axel in the bronze medal position as he continues to fall further and further back.
Yeah, this is a shame, and potentially, you know, like you say, it could be the frost, it could be that he's working slightly too hard for the conditions, and what worked in Heat 1 isn't working so well for him in Heat 2, and that's a shame.
So the way that this trend has been going since Matt went, I'm very curious to see how Christopher Groothair is going to be able to handle this. Of course, we know he can handle it. He's an Olympic champion. He's a multi-time world champion here on the Altenburg track. He has hundreds of runs. Let's see if he can fend off Matt Weston's time. Again, they were only separated by 800ths after that first heat.
I mean, if anyone can withstand the pressure that Matt is applying, it is Christopher Groothair, but anything can happen, and that's the great thing about this sport, is nothing is given.
So not completely satisfied there, but like we said earlier, he will have an opportunity next week to come out and show what he's capable of again. So Christopher Groothair at the line, our World Cup leader, wearing the yellow bib to signify that he is the man to be on tour at the moment. He's getting down, he's getting ready, he's wearing the on-cloud spikes. Big start for the German here. Let's see how he does. A 5:02. Okay, so the 9th best start. But again, like we had said, he is one of the best drivers in the competition and someone who can handle pressure.
Yeah, and that's exactly the same start time that he produced in Heat 1. And obviously that was good enough for first on Heat 1. So let's see if that is enough on Heat 2. He's slightly behind Matt, but as I said, if anyone knows how to find speed on this track, even when it's frosty, it's this guy.
And again, Matt really took off once he exited Kreisel. That was where he gained a lot of his time. So this will be really interesting to see as Groothair continues to fall further back into the red.
Yeah, and he is moving in the wrong direction. He's bleeding speed, and he still produced the highest speed there, but I think it's going to be too little too late.
Oh my goodness! And Matt Weston put together the run that he needed in order to win the gold medal. Unbelievably, comes back from 5th place and climbs all the way to gold, I believe for his first ever win on the World Cup here in Altenburg. So congratulations to Matt Weston. What an incredible effort by him. And again, Christopher Groothair is upset, but he will still walk away today with the silver medal. And Axel Young, I believe now, will hold on to that 3rd spot. So all these sliders need to be incredibly proud of themselves. What an effort and what a race. I love how when there's a tight grouping like that, there's so many different variables and changes that can happen.
Yeah, exactly, and Christopher still put down a great run, but Matt just held him off, and what an incredible climb that Matt made there all the way to the top of the podium. Incredible.
So again, an unreal run here by Matt Weston. He did exactly what he needed to do, being in a tight grouping, sitting 800ths behind the German slider who was sitting in the gold medal position. Matt kept it clean, exits the shootout corner and exits Kreisel, and just takes off. The jet boosters were on, smooth bottom half. That found him gaining all the time he needed to come back today and win this race.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to Matt Weston.
Fantastic result there for Matt, and you can tell he's happy about it. What a brilliant day for him.
Absolutely brilliant day. So again, Matt Weston wins the race. Christopher Grotehair takes second. Axel Young third. And our Korean sliders, again, an impressive showing by them today, as well as the Chinese. They are just on the cusp of breaking into the medals, which only makes things more interesting as these sliders go into next week with a whole new week, fresh perspectives, and an opportunity to make up for some of the mistakes that were made today.
Absolutely. Great to be staying here for another week and have an opportunity to potentially fix mistakes that were made and try again. You can never have too many runs on a track like this. You still learn every single time you take a trip.
Absolutely, exactly, Laura. And the same goes for you. It's another week, another opportunity to gain more runs. You had an excellent race weekend, and now we look forward to seeing you as well. Get ready to go out there and hopefully do the same as what Matt was able to do here and go for the gold medal next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the great things about this sport is that you're always learning. It doesn't matter how many years you've been sliding for, there's still something to learn. And there we see the overall World Cup standings have moved around a little bit there. Christopher Grotehair maintaining his gold jersey, which is great to see. Marcus getting up in there second as well, and then Axel sat in third spot.
So I'll be curious to see if Marcus, maybe he has a great showing next week, starts to push his way up and really put the pressure on Christopher Grotehair for that yellow bib moving forward. And again, a nice round out by the rest of these countries here who have been fighting hard all year. Manuel Schweizer there, you see him in 26th. He was having an excellent run on his second heat today, so keep an eye out for him next week. I think he's going to have a lot of potential to improve, not only upon his finish this week, but moving forward. Well, again, my name is Hunter Church, and I was so happy to be joined here today with Laura Dees. And thank you again for joining us on the IBSF World Cup number 5 in Altenburg, Germany. I don't know if I'll see you next week, but I hope you tune in.